Commander Kim leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms above his head as he stared at the monitoring screens. Another quiet day on Outpost Station Vega 7. The same as yesterday, and the day before that, and the 100 days before that. "Sir, want some coffee?" Officer June asked, already half asleep at his console. "Thanks," Kim nodded, accepting the steaming cup. The bitter liquid was one of the few luxuries they had out here on the edge of Coalition space. "Anything on the scanners today?" June shook his head. "Just the usual space dust and asteroid fragments." Kim sighed. When he'd first been assigned to Vega 7, he'd been excited. A command position. Leading an important outpost protecting the borders of the mighty Andromeda Coalition. But 5 years later, the excitement had worn off completely. Nothing ever happened here. The Coalition had spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, bringing hundreds of alien species under their control. Some joined willingly for protection and trade. Others were forced to join after short one-sided conflicts. The Coalition's military might was unmatched across known space. Officer Han, status report. On Sector 12. Kim called across the monitoring room. Han didn't even look up from the game she was playing on her console. "All clear, Commander. Same as the last 1,000 days. Kim didn't bother reprimanding her. What was the point? They all knew this posting was just a formality. The Coalition maintained outposts like Vega 7, not because they were needed, but because military protocol demanded it. Besides, the only system of note in this sector was Sol, home to the primitives called humans. Coalition intelligence reports classified Earth as a backwater planet with barely functional spacecraft. The humans had only recently figured out how to reach their own moon. They presented zero threat to Coalition interests. "I heard they're sending us new entertainment modules next supply run," Officer Park said, spinning lazily in his chair. "About time. I've watched every show in our database at least 3 times. Maybe they'll finally fix the food synthesizer too," Han added hopefully. "I can't stomach another bowl of that grey protein mush." Kim nodded absently, staring out the observation window at the endless black of space. The stars looked especially bright today, twinkling against the darkness. Sometimes he wondered what it would be like to be stationed somewhere important, somewhere where things actually happened. The soft beep from Officer Lee's console barely registered at first. Commander?" Lee's voice was uncertain. "I'm picking up something strange." Kim didn't rush over. Strange readings happened occasionally, usually just sensor glitches or space debris with unusual compositions. "What is it?" "Unidentified vessel, sir. Approaching from..." Lee frowned at his screen. "From uncharted space beyond Sector 14. That got Kim's attention. He put down his coffee and walked over to Lee's station. "Beyond Sector 14. There's nothing out there." "Well, something's coming from there now," Lee said, fingers flying over his console. "Getting energy readings. Wait, that can't be right." The entire room seemed to wake up at once. Han abandoned her game. Park stopped spinning in his chair. June spilled his coffee, rushing to his station. "What kind of energy readings?" Kim asked, feeling the first tickle of concern. "Nothing that matches our records, sir," Lee said, his voice growing tense. "The power output it's off the charts, and the configuration is unlike anything in our database." Kim frowned. Every spacefaring species in the known galaxy was part of the Coalition, and the Coalition had detailed records of every type of engine, weapon, and power source in existence. "Could be a natural phenomenon," Han suggested from across the room. "Maybe a weird asteroid with unusual mineral composition?" Lee shook his head. "It's definitely a ship, moving with purpose, holding steady course, heading straight for Coalition space." "Time to intercept?" Kim asked. "At current speed." Lee's eyes widened. 3 hours, sir." 3 hours? Park exclaimed. "That's impossible. Even our fastest ships would take days to cross that distance." Kim felt sweat forming on his forehead. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Send a standard identification request. Maybe it's just a lost transport with new engine technology." Lee sent the signal, then shook his head. "No response, sir." "Keep trying," Kim ordered. "And alert Coalition Command. Tell them we have an unidentified vessel approaching at unprecedented speed with unknown technology. As the message was sent, Kim returned to the observation window, staring out at the stars. The peaceful, boring existence he had complained about minutes ago now seemed like a distant dream. "Sir?" June's voice was small. "The ship, it's accelerating." Kim watched as his crew scrambled around the monitoring room, their earlier boredom, replaced by frantic activity. A nagging feeling grew in his stomach, a feeling that everything was about to change. "New estimate for arrival," Lee called out, fear evident in his voice. 90 minutes, sir." Kim nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the blackness of space where soon, very soon, the unknown vessel would appear. "I think," he said quietly, "we may have made a terrible mistake in dismissing the humans." Officer Sue leaned closer to her friends in the Coalition military canteen, lowering her voice. "Have you heard the stories about the humans?" "What stories?" asked Officer Moon, biting into his meal ration without enthusiasm. "My cousin served on a research vessel that observed their planet a few decades back," Sue said, eyes wide. "The things she told me, well, they don't match the official reports at all." Around their table, other officers perked up, drawn by the promise of gossip to break the monotony of their shift. "What do you mean?" asked Officer Jin, sliding his chair closer. Sue glanced around before continuing. "Did you know Earth has been invaded 3 times? And each time the humans fought back and won, without spaceships, without energy weapons, without even knowing about alien life," Moon snorted. "That's impossible. Coalition records say Earth is a backwater. They've barely reached their own moon." "That's what makes it so incredible," Sue insisted. "The first invasion was centuries. Ego small scout force similar to the Grak species. They landed in a place called New Mexico. Within hours, the humans had captured their ship, killed the crew, and hidden all evidence." "How would they even know to do that?" Jin asked skeptically. "That's just it, they didn't. They were scared and reacted with overwhelming force, pure instinct." Sue took a sip of her drink. "The second invasion was larger. A Zephyrian mining operation tried to establish a base in their Arctic region about 100 years ago. The humans found it and wiped them out completely. Not a single alien survived." Officer Yun, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. "I heard something similar from my commander. He said the Coalition tried to establish diplomatic contact 50 years ago. A ship landed in a region called Kazakhstan. The humans captured everyone on board and took the ship apart piece by piece." "Exactly." Sue nodded vigorously. "And instead of being afraid, they were excited. They immediately started figuring out how the technology worked. Within years, they had reverse-engineered most of it." A silence fell over the table as they considered this. The official Coalition stance on Earth was dismissive, a primitive planet not worth serious attention. But these stories painted a different picture. "If they're so dangerous, why hasn't the Coalition dealt with them?" Moon asked. "Because the High Command doesn't believe the reports," Yun answered. "Or they don't want to. Easier to ignore Earth than admit there's a potentially dangerous species developing right on our borders." The conversation might have continued, but at that moment emergency alerts blared throughout the station. Officers jumped from their seats, rushing to their stations. In the Coalition headquarters, Intelligence Chief Kang burst into the High Command meeting room without waiting for permission. His usually immaculate uniform was rumpled, and sweat beaded on his forehead. "Sir, we have a situation," he announced to Admiral Choi. "An Earth vessel has entered Coalition space." Admiral Choi frowned. "Earth? The primitives? Impossible. Their ships can barely reach their neighboring planets." "It's confirmed, sir. The vessel is called the ETS Nemesis." Kang placed a data tablet on the table, showing sensor readings. "And it's like nothing we've ever seen before." Around the table, other military leaders leaned forward, suddenly alert. "What do you mean?" demanded General Lee. "The ship is advanced, sir, far beyond what Earth should be capable of. It appears to incorporate technology from at least 3 different species, all modified in ways our engineers don't understand." Admiral Choi's face darkened. "How did they get this technology?" Kang hesitated. "Sir, remember those unofficial reports about previous contact with Earth? The ones we dismissed?" The room grew very quiet. "You're saying they've been scavenging our technology, learning from it, Choi asked slowly. Not just learning, sir. Improving it. The energy readings from the Nemesis suggest power systems at least 30% more efficient than our best ships, and their weapons. Kang swallowed hard. We can't even identify some of them. General Lee slammed his fist on the table. This is absurd. One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot threaten the coalition. It's not just the ship that concerns us, sir, Kang continued. It's how they fight. All species we've encountered have clear patterns in warfare. The Zephyrians value honor above all. The Grak never sacrifice individuals. The Taurians always preserve historical sites. Your point? Choi asked tersely. Humans don't have these limitations. From what we've gathered studying their history, they fight to win completely. They've waged wars against their own kind that resulted in millions of deaths. They've developed weapons specifically designed to cause maximum casualties. They've bombed their own historical sites when tactically necessary. Silence fell over the room again as the implications sank in. Where is this Nemesis now? Admiral, Choi finally asked. Approaching Outpost Station Vega 7, sir. Captain Park is in command. Park? Who is this Park? Kang brought up another file on his tablet. Ji-Hoon Park, former military commander in Earth's Korean naval forces before joining their space program. Highly decorated, known for unconventional tactics and absolute commitment to mission success. Admiral Choi stared at the human's image on the screen. The alien face looked back, unreadable and determined. Send all available ships to intercept, he ordered. I want this situation contained before it escalates. As officers rushed to carry out his commands, Choi remained seated, studying Park's face. He couldn't shake the feeling that the coalition had made a grave miscalculation in dismissing Earth for so long. And Kang, he added, as the intelligence chief turned to leave, I want everything we have on humans. Their history, their warfare, their psychology, everything. Yes, sir. But there's one more thing you should know. Kang paused at the door. Intercepted communications suggest the Nemesis isn't a warship sent to attack us. It's a message, a demonstration of what they're capable of. And if that's true, then there may be more ships we don't know about. Choi finished grimly. Much more. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship, the unyielding Victory, watching the tactical display with barely contained impatience. The mysterious human ship continued its steady approach, a single red dot against the vast blackness of space. Still no response to our hails? He asked for the third time in 10 minutes. None, Admiral, Communications Officer High replied, frustration evident in her voice. We've tried all standard frequencies and protocols. They're receiving our signals, the bounceback confirms it, but they're choosing not to answer. Lee snorted. This was typical behavior from newly spacefaring races, attempting to appear mysterious and powerful, to mask their fear and inexperience. He'd seen it dozens of times during his long career. How long until visual contact? He asked. Approximately 7 minutes, sir, replied Navigator Day. Lee nodded, surveying the bridge with satisfaction. His crew was the best in the coalition fleet, efficient, disciplined, and utterly loyal. And his battle group was impressive. 30 ships, including 5 heavy cruisers, 15 destroyers, and 10 rapid response frigates. It was actually overkill for greeting a single vessel, but Lee had insisted on a show of force. New species. Needed to understand the coalition's power from the very beginning. Put me through to the fleet, Lee ordered. When Officer High nodded that the channel was open, Lee spoke with practiced authority. This is Admiral Lee. The unknown vessel will be in visual range shortly. Remember your training. This is a standard first contact scenario. The humans are new to interstellar travel and will likely be intimidated by our presence. Maintain formation Delta 7. Weapons systems on standby, but not targeted. We want to impress them, not provoke them. A chorus of acknowledgements came through. The comm system. Sir, Tactical Officer John interrupted. The human vessel is increasing speed. Lee frowned. Trajectory? Still headed directly toward us. They'll reach our perimeter in 3 minutes now. That was unexpected. Most new species approached with caution, especially when confronted by a superior force. Lee felt the first twinge of unease but quickly suppressed it. Let them come, he said confidently. Maintain positions. The bridge fell silent as they watched the red dot move closer on the tactical display. When it reached the edge of their formation, the main view screen automatically activated, showing their first real look at the ETS Nemesis. Lee's eyes widened. The human ship was unlike anything he'd seen before. It was smaller than his flagship, but sleek and predatory-looking, with odd protrusions and sections that seemed to follow no logical design pattern. Its hull was a deep matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making its exact dimensions difficult to determine. "Unusual design," Officer John commented. "Those structures along the sides don't match any known weapon or sensor systems." "Sir," Officer High said suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission, audio only." Lee straightened his uniform. "Put it through." A calm, steady voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Coalition standard language. "Coalition vessels, this is Captain Ji-hun Park of the Earthship Nemesis. We acknowledge your presence. Please maintain your current positions." Lee bristled at the presumptuous tone. This human was giving orders to a Coalition admiral? "This is Admiral Lee of the Coalition Defense Force," he replied sternly. "You have entered Coalition space unauthorized. Power down your engines and prepare to be escorted to Processing Station 12 for proper diplomatic procedures." There was a brief pause before Park responded. "That won't be necessary, Admiral. We're here to deliver a message, not to follow your protocols." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the bridge crew. Lee felt his face flush with anger. "You misunderstand, Captain Park. This is not a request. Power down immediately or we will be forced to take action." Another pause. "I understand completely, Admiral. But before you take any action, I believe a demonstration is in order." Before Lee could respond, Officer Jun shouted, "Sir, energy spike from the Nemesis." Lee's training kicked in instantly. "All ships, defensive positions. Shields at maximum." But instead of weapons fire, a wave of something emanated from the human vessel. It wasn't visible except as a slight distortion, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. When the wave passed over Lee's ship, every system on the bridge flickered momentarily. Lee waited for the attack to follow. Energy beams, projectiles, something, but nothing came. "Report!" he barked. Officer Jun was frantically working his console. "Sir, weapons systems they're offline. Targeting computers are giving random outputs. The connections between fire control and the actual weapons have been severed somehow." "Communications to the fleet are down," High added, her voice rising in pitch. "Internal comms still work, but we can't reach any other vessel." Lee stared at the view screen, where the Nemesis hung motionless against the starfield. "Engines?" Navigator Day looked up, face pale. "Life support and basic propulsion are functional, sir, but advanced maneuvering, jump capabilities, and navigation. Systems are compromised." Lee felt cold dread wash over him. In one move, without firing a single shot, the human ship had neutralized his entire battle group. They were effectively sitting ducks. The comm system crackled to life again. "Admiral Lee?" Park's voice was still calm, almost conversational. "As you can now see, if we wanted to destroy your ships, we could do so without difficulty. The technology we just deployed is one of many we've developed. Your weapons cannot target us, your ships cannot coordinate, and your calls for reinforcement won't reach anyone." Lee sank slowly into his command chair. "What do you want?" he asked, all pretense of authority gone from his voice. "As I said, we're here to deliver a message. Earth is now entering the galactic stage, Admiral. We've been watching the Coalition for decades, learning your technology, understanding your politics. The Nemesis is just a demonstration, a small taste of what humanity is capable of." "Decades," Lee whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Impossible." "Not impossible, Admiral. We're very good at remaining undetected when we choose to be." There was a pause. "Your systems will reset in approximately 1 hour. No permanent damage has been done. Consider this a professional courtesy from one military leader to another." The communication cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Sir?" Officer High finally ventured. "Orders." Admiral Lee continued staring at the black ship on the view screen, his mind racing through the implications. In all his years of service, through dozens of first contacts and several minor conflicts, He had never been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet, they had done it without firing a single shot, using technology the Coalition didn't even understand. "We wait," he said quietly. "And then we report everything exactly as it happened. The High Command needs to know what we're dealing with." As his crew set about assessing the damage, Lee couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just fundamentally changed. The era of Coalition dominance might be coming to an end. The Coalition Emergency Council chamber had never been so quiet. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around the massive obsidian table, their usual confidence shattered. On the large holographic display at the center of the table floated the image of Captain Song of the Earth vessel Nemesis. High Chancellor Min watched the human with growing unease. The alien looked so ordinary, small in stature compared to many Coalition species, with no obvious physical advantages. Yet this creature and its kind had just delivered the most devastating blow to Coalition authority in centuries. "Let me be clear," Captain Song was saying, her voice steady and emotionless. "This is not a negotiation, these are terms. You cannot seriously expect the Coalition to simply bow to demands from a single planet," Defense Minister Jun scoffed. Though his voice lacked its usual strength, Captain Song's expression didn't change. "We expect the Coalition to recognize reality. Earth and all human colonies are sovereign territory, not subject to Coalition authority. A buffer zone of 15 light-years will be established around all human-controlled space. Any Coalition military vessel entering this zone without explicit permission will be considered an act of war." Trade Minister Wu leaned forward. "And if we refuse these terms, then we go to war," Song replied simply. "A war you cannot win." The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. Chancellor Min raised a hand for silence. "Captain Song," he said carefully, "while your ship's technology is impressive, the Coalition spans 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. We have millions of vessels and billions of soldiers. Surely you understand the mathematics of the situation." For the first time Song's expression changed slightly, the corner of her mouth twitched upward in what might have been a smile. "We understand mathematics perfectly, Chancellor, perhaps better than you do." She made a small gesture, and the holographic display changed. Gasps filled the chamber as detailed schematics of Coalition military bases appeared, rotating slowly. These weren't just any bases. They were the most classified secret installations. In Coalition space, weapon development facilities, command centers, strategic planning headquarters. "This is Coalition Deep Space Station 17, Song said, pointing to one schematic. "Currently housing your prototype gravitic torpedo project. The station has 342 personnel, including 45 scientists. Security consists of 12 automated defense platforms and 3 patrol vessels. The command codes for the station's shield systems were updated 3 days ago." The display changed again. "This is the Coalition High Command bunker beneath Mount Sarin on Proxima 2, 5 levels, accessible only by quantum-locked transporters. Currently, 79 high-ranking officers use this facility for war planning. The emergency evacuation protocols were tested last month and found to be 7 minutes too slow by your own standards." Minister Jun had gone pale. How did you get this information?" The display changed again, showing dozens of locations, simultaneously, each with detailed notes on personnel, defenses, and weaknesses. "We've had observers in Coalition space for decades," Song explained calmly. "Your species register humans as non-threatening, so our operatives move freely through your society. We have detailed intelligence on every significant military installation in Coalition territory." Chancellor Min felt physically ill. If the humans had this level of intelligence, what else did they know? What else could they do? "This is blackmail," Science Minister Han said, finding her voice at last. Song shook her head slightly. "This is diplomacy, Coalition style. You've forced dozens of species to join your alliance through military threats and demonstrations of power. We're simply speaking a language you understand." The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd infiltrated every level of Coalition security and gathered intelligence for decades while remaining completely undetected. And what happens if we agree to these terms? Chancellor. Min finally asked. Then we become neighbors instead of enemies, Song replied. Earth has no interest in coalition territory or in disrupting your society. We simply want to ensure our own independence and security. Trade Minister Wu, ever practical, spoke up. And trade? Would Earth be open to commercial relationships? Under strictly controlled conditions, yes. We have technologies that would benefit the coalition, and there are resources we would be interested in acquiring. Defense Minister Jun slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. We cannot allow ourselves to be threatened by a single species from a single planet. Song's gaze shifted to him. Minister Jun, you recently commissioned a report on potential threats to coalition security. The report identified internal corruption and complacency as greater threats than any external enemy. That report was viewed by only 7 individuals and stored on an isolated network with no external connections. She paused. The report was correct. Jun's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Chancellor Min studied the human carefully. Everything about this situation defied conventional wisdom. One ship shouldn't be able to neutralize an entire battle group. One species shouldn't be able to infiltrate the most secure facilities in the galaxy. And yet, how do we know you haven't planted weapons or sabotage devices throughout our territory? He asked. You don't, Song answered simply. That uncertainty is part of the deterrent, but I will tell you this. If we wanted to destroy the coalition, we could have done so already. We prefer coexistence to conquest. Another way in which we differ from you. The subtle rebuke hung in the air. I need to consult with the full Coalition Council, Min said finally. This decision cannot be made by the Emergency Council alone. You have 24 standard hours, Song replied. After that, we will consider your lack of response as rejection of our terms and act accordingly. The holographic image flickered and disappeared, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Science Minister Han was the first to speak. Could they really have the capability to wage war against the entire coalition? After what we've seen? Trade Minister Wu shook his head. They disabled Admiral Li's entire battle group without firing a shot. They've infiltrated our most secure facilities. They know things that shouldn't be possible for them to know. It could be an elaborate bluff, Minister Jun suggested weakly. A bluff backed by impressive evidence, Chancellor Min countered. And what if it's not a bluff? What if we reject their terms and find ourselves facing an enemy that can neutralize our weapons and already knows all our strategic plans? The room fell silent again as they contemplated the unthinkable. The mighty coalition brought to its knees by a species they had dismissed as primitive just days earlier. We need to know more about these humans, Min decided. Have our intelligence services compile everything we have on Earth and its history. If we're going to make this decision, we need to understand what kind of species we're dealing with. As the ministers filed out to carry out his orders, Min remained seated, staring at the empty space where Captain Song's image had been. In all his years as Chancellor, he had never faced such a crisis. The coalition had always been the dominant power dictating terms to others. Now for the first time they were the ones being dictated to. And perhaps most disturbing of all, Min wasn't sure they had any choice but to accept. The great council chamber of the coalition capital was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from all member species had been summoned for what many were, calling the most important meeting in coalition history. The usual strict protocols about seating arrangements and speaking order had been abandoned in the rush. Chancellor Min looked out at the sea of faces, some humanoid, others utterly alien, all showing signs of stress and fear in their own unique ways. The Tyrillians' head frills were fully extended. The Voleth delegates had turned an unhealthy shade of grey. Even the usually stoic Naga representatives were visibly agitated, their scales rippling with nervous energy. The situation is unprecedented, Min began, his amplified voice cutting through the murmurs. As you've all been briefed 24 hours ago, we received an ultimatum from Earth, demanding recognition of their sovereignty and establishment of a buffer zone around their territory. One planet cannot dictate terms to the coalition, shouted a representative from the back of the chamber. Min held up his hand. I understand your outrage. I shared it. But circumstances have changed dramatically in the last few hours. He nodded to Intelligence Director Shin, who stepped forward. With a data tablet, the large projection screen behind them lit up with a map of Coalition space. Dozens of red dots appeared, scattered throughout the 3 spiral arms. These, Shin said quietly, are human ships that have revealed themselves in the last 12 hours. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Some were disguised as merchant vessels, Shin continued. Others were hiding in asteroid fields or nebulae. Several were actually docked at our own stations, registered under false credentials. All have technology similar to or exceeding that of the Nemesis. How many? Asked the Voleth Prime Minister. 217 confirmed so far, Shin replied. And we believe there are more we haven't detected yet. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Coalition species that had been enemies before joining now huddled together, united in their fear of this new threat. There's more, Min said, raising his voice above the din. We've received reports of unusual activity at multiple military installations throughout Coalition space. Weapons systems mysteriously failing. Communication networks experiencing unexplained outages. Defense grid access codes being changed without authorization. They're already attacking, someone shouted. No, Shin corrected. They're demonstrating capability. None of these actions have caused harm or permanent damage. They're showing us what they could do if they wanted to. How is this possible? Demanded the Tyrillian ambassador. How could one species infiltrate us so thoroughly? Min gestured to an aide, who distributed data tablets to the front row representatives. Our intelligence services have compiled everything we know about humans and their history. It makes for disturbing reading. Chief Science. Officer Yoon stepped forward. Earth is what we classify as a death world, she explained. High gravity, extreme climate variations, countless natural disasters, aggressive pathogens and numerous apex predators. By all accounts, humans should have gone extinct long ago. Images appeared on the screen. Massive storms tearing through, cities, mountains spewing molten rock, waves taller than buildings crashing onto shores. Instead, they survived by developing extraordinary adaptability and ingenuity, Yoon continued. While most species evolved to fit a specific ecological niche, humans evolved to change their environment to suit them. They can live anywhere from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. The screen showed humans in various environments, thriving where other species would perish. But it's their social history that's most relevant to our current situation, Yoon said, her voice growing softer. Humans have been at war with each other constantly throughout their history. They've developed weapons specifically to kill their own kind. They've perfected the art of deception and strategy. Their entertainment, their games, are simulations of conflict. New images appeared, ancient battles, modern warfare, strategic board games. In the last 100 years, they've made technological leaps that took other species millennia, Yoon Mai concluded. And they've done it all while driven by competition with each other. We grew complacent in peace. They grew stronger through constant conflict. The chamber was utterly silent now. Min looked out at the stunned faces of the representatives and knew what they were thinking. The same thing he'd thought when he first read the reports. How do you fight an enemy that has been preparing for war its entire existence? The human. Ultimatum expires in 6 hours, Min said, breaking the silence. The Emergency Council has reviewed all available information and has a recommendation. But given the gravity of the situation, we are putting it to a full vote. Minister June, who had been the most vocal opponent of giving in to human demands, now stood. His usual fire was gone, replaced by a grim resignation. The Defense Ministry has run countless simulations, he said flatly. Even if only half of what we suspect about human capabilities is true, a war would be catastrophic for the Coalition. Their technology neutralizes our advantages. Their intelligence operations have compromised our security, and their ships are already positioned throughout our territory. He paused, seeming to age before their eyes. For the first time in my career, I am recommending we accept terms dictated by another power. The chamber remained silent, the absence of protest more telling than any argument could have been. We are putting forward a resolution to recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory, Min said. We will establish the buffer zone they requested and begin diplomatic relations on their terms. All in favor? The vote was nearly unanimous. 3 hours later, Min sat alone in his office staring out at the glittering capital city below. Captain Song's holographic image floated above his desk. The Coalition accepts your terms, Min said formally. We recognize Earth's sovereignty and will respect the buffer zone as specified. Song nodded. A wise decision, Chancellor. I'm authorized to inform you that all human vessels will maintain their current positions, but will not take hostile action unless provoked. We are prepared to begin establishing formal diplomatic channels immediately. Min couldn't help himself. May I ask a personal question, Captain? You may. Why this approach? If you had the power to defeat us all along, why not simply attack? Song's expression softened slightly. Because that's not who we want to be anymore, Chancellor. Humans have a long history of violence, it's true, but we're trying to evolve beyond that. This demonstration was necessary to ensure our security, but it served another purpose too. What purpose? To prevent a war, not start one. Song's eyes held Min's gaze steadily. If we had approached the Coalition traditionally, you would have seen us as weak. You would have tried to subjugate us like so many other species. We would have resisted. Millions would have died on both sides. Min considered this. So the nemesis was a warning shot, Song finished. A way to show what we're capable of, without having to prove it through bloodshed. After the transmission ended, Min remained at his window, watching the city lights. The Coalition had ruled the galaxy for centuries, bringing countless species under its control through diplomacy, backed by military might. Now, for the first time, they had encountered a species that had beaten them at their own game. The humans had studied them, infiltrated them, and then revealed their power only when they were absolutely certain of victory. And they had done it, all without firing a single shot. As reports continued to come in about human ships appearing throughout Coalition space, ships that had been hiding in plain sight for years, Min couldn't help but feel a grudging admiration. The humans had accomplished what no other species had managed in centuries. They had changed the galactic order overnight. The age of Coalition dominance was over. A new era of galactic politics had begun, and it had all started when Earth's deadliest ship entered Coalition space.